Sorry. This is on. Are we good? Cool. All right. Are we clear to send? Cool. All right. Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Johnny Christmas, and this is relatively short presentation that I like to just do for fun. It's kind of dopey. It's funny. It kind of breaks up the monotony. Try to make you laugh a little, and maybe not even laugh. Just a little side eye, like, oh, I see what he's doing there, kind of thing. If you read the description for this talk, I specifically call out, like, I'm not going to say anything in this talk that you have not heard before, which is a really interesting thing to put, like when you're doing a CFP and trying to convince a conference to have you come speak and present your unique information to a group of people, and you're like, I have nothing new to say, and then they book you, and you have to come do it. This is something I wrote kind of out of frustration, and the core audience was kind of like the management, the buying power, the executive audience. I originally put it together for an ISSA meeting, and it was out of just absolute frustration over the fact that there are so many core things that, like, everybody seems to claim to know, or when you talk to them, they're like, I know, and then when they're actually doing this stuff in practice, they completely screw everything up. And I'm like, what are you missing? What are you not understanding here of these very simple concepts? And so I was like, thinking about the problems of SIEM ownership, the purchasing, the management, the training, et cetera, and I was like, it's a whole lot like what my experience was with, like, buying and operating motorcycles. And so I was like, maybe that's like, we just need a context shift and say, hey, look at it this way. Think about it like this. Like, maybe the whole problem is that, like, you're looking at this like an image on a screen or a piece of hardware in your data center, and you're like, I don't know, it's just this like black box that I don't understand. And the reality of it is, it's really easy. You just have to stop, take an extra minute, sit back, think about it, plan it out before you do anything. And so let's take you through my trip of being a motorcycle rider for about half my life. Has anyone read the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance? Good. Oh my God, that's great, because I've done this talk 2 other times, and both times they were like, no, I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about. What a weird image to pick for this talk. And and I was like, oh no, because it was one of my favorite books, and it used to be like an immensely popular book, like in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And it's very similar to kind of what I'm doing with the talk now, which is like, well, I'm really talking about SIEM ownership, but, like, you know, in the context of motorcycle maintenance. His book was about the concept of being a good person and getting through life's struggles through the lens of owning a motorcycle. And I was like, let me do that with SIEM. And so I was like, what do I call it? What do I call it? What do I call it? And the answer was like right there, right? And it's like, oh, SIEM in there. So that's all this is. It's just the book. If you haven't read this book, highly recommend it. It is not something you need to understand motorcycles to read, which probably why nobody has read it. It's just called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and it's a very Zen book, but give it a try. So this is me. I'm Johnny Christmas. The picture up here is not me, if you can't tell, and it's got a funny story. And I forgot that I had sent this deck in like 6 months ago, or whenever John asked if I would come speak, and I was like, oh yeah, I just used this. And then just today I realized, oh wait, I should update that picture. And then I did, and so I have the updated deck on my laptop, but then I came in and they're already set here, and I was like, nah, I'll leave it, it's gonna be funny. What that came from was, originally it's a picture of me with my current motorcycle, and I had submitted this talk to speak at the local ISSA chapter, and they put me on their website, and it was me and Leslie Carhart, Hacks for Pancakes, if anyone's familiar, and it had her bio and her photograph, and it was of her, and that was all fine and good. And then below that was me, my name, my bio, and a picture of this kid. And I hadn't looked at the website, but Leslie texts me and she goes, well done on trolling the ISSA. And I go, what are you talking about? And she goes, your picture on the website. And then I looked and I was like, Who is that? And so then I email the two people who like run the chapter and put the website together and stuff. And I'm like, whose picture is on that? And they're like, that's the picture you sent us. I said, nope. I've never seen this person in my life. Also, fun fact, I didn't send you any picture because you never asked me for one. So and I was like, is that your kid? Like, that's not our kid. So like, this mystery person just appeared on the Chicago ISSA chapter's website, and there he is. Anybody know what his name is? Anyone take a guess? Oh, you guys are not participants. Steve, okay. Johnny Halloween, Johnny Ramadan. Rolls off the tongue, I like it. Huh? Yeah, we don't know. I don't know who that kid is, but there he is on my motorcycle. It's very upsetting. And so like what I did as a joke back to the ISSA is I took the picture off the website and then put it in my slide deck, like, here's me on the motorcycle. this mystery kid. And I ran it through like reverse image search. I ran it through like some AI reverse image searches. Absolutely blank. Nothing comes up on this, and whoever this kid is. And my guess, it was like a template, like a placeholder on their website or something. But I forgot it's there, and now we all get to laugh at this dumb crap. Him aside, let's talk about me. I've spent about 25 years working in IT. Over 13 of that has been in jobs that have information security in their title. And I say in their title because before that, like, security is everybody's job, right? But really, more than 13 years ago, like it was practically impossible to get a job where you had information security in the title, because it was practically a job no organization had. So it was like, well, I was doing network security, but really my job title was just network engineer and then systems engineer. But I was focused on writing ACLs and things, so it's like, yeah. But officially, those are the numbers there. What I do like to call out, let's get this guy out of here. There you go, buddy. I always love calling out the fact that my background, I always say it's a non-standard background, and then I come to these conferences and talk to everybody, and then everybody's like, me too. I also have a non-standard background, which means to me that this is just a standard background, really. Let's do this. So I went to music school. Anyone else here go to music school? No? Okay. Oftentimes, there's like one person like, oh yeah, me too. Like, right? Who remembers, what was it, probably 2013, 14, 15, 16, somewhere around there. I believe it was, what was the credit agency who punted their CISO because they got absolutely destroyed? Started with a T, wasn't it? It was TransUnion. I keep saying TrustWave, which is a different nightmare. TransUnion. So it was like right around there. Who remembers? It was a female CISO, and the internet absolutely just destroyed this woman. Do you guys remember that? I hope you don't, but I see some nodding heads. It was a nightmare. It was the most horrible, embarrassing things I have ever seen, like, the community do. And I will guarantee, especially back then, if it wasn't a woman, like, there would have been half the conversation around this. But what really, of course, bothered me personally is she had a music degree. She was a music major. And people were like, what the fuck is a music major? Well, this is the first problem. She doesn't even know information security. She went to music school. And it's like, first off, that was like 30 years ago she went to music school. She had an entire career of information security underneath her at a time when everybody who's commenting on this problem has like 4, right? And they're like, this is the problem. You see right here, you've got the trombone player running your security. And I loved being able to just come back and be like, hey, me too. I'm also a music major. Should I not be in this field? Do I not know what I'm doing? You know? You asked me to come speak at your conferences. Should I? Fuck me, right? So I really think that going to what is effectively art school really helped me on my career towards the things that I do, which is that thinking outside of the box. Taking something where you go, okay, here's how the thing works. You read the instructions, you understand thoroughly what is meant to be done with the thing, and then you go, what else can it do? What else does it do when I do something to it it's not expecting, you know, as a penetration tester, et cetera. That's what we do. We poke it in weird ways and see how it reacts. And that's what art is. I mean, art is like, here are colored pencils. When you scrape them on a surface, they stain it. Cool. What else can I do with this box of colored pencils? Well, you can create an entirely different universe based on images that you can create with what is effectively something that just destroys a surface you scrape. And that's, I don't know, having your brain trained that way has really, 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 really helped me down at least the assessment path. And so I'm very proud of the fact that I went to music school, even though it's real easy to say absolutely none of it whatsoever applies to information security, which isn't true at all. I mean, music is math first and foremost. Anyway, other things that I like to do, I used to have a whole title slide here that was, hey, here's all the other jobs I've had and all the job titles and the things I did at those jobs. And like the reality is nobody cares. Like you guys too have all had really cool jobs and job titles, or maybe you're hoping to. Whatever, it doesn't matter what my titles were. It's like, who am I? What do I like to do? That's what somebody might care about, and really, it's not why you came to this talk anyway. I am an avid urban explorer. I like to do photography inside of like old abandoned buildings and abandoned sites and just kind of like the blight that's kind of taken over this country. You know, we have so many towns. Our country has been through such massive, instantaneous expansion, economic expansion, where you'll have huge cities that will build up from things like the automotive industry or the steel belt. And then as those industries die out or get sent off to other countries, we'll see these entire cities just crumble and be abandoned. And I love going in and just taking photographs of nature, reclaiming old corporate headquarters and things like that. And so that's what I do to kind of blow off some steam and get away from the computer and get out and do something else. I think this QR code will take you to my link tree, which will have links to my Instagram and YouTube and things like that. So if you want to scan that and follow me in other places and see the things I do that are not computery, that's a good place to go. Because I'm really proud of the fact that I don't just sit in front of a computer and do computer things all day. Like that's how I prevent burnout, is I make sure I'm doing stuff that's not what I'm doing for work. I'm currently the head of the BurbSec organization, which is somebody who's like, I'm not familiar with BurbSec. It's not super applicable to you guys, but it is a huge information security meetup network in the Chicagoland area. And thinking Chicagoland, we have 5 different meetups. Every Thursday there is one meetup somewhere, and we have so many because Chicagoland's a very large area, and we didn't want to have to make people drive an hour, hour and a half just to get to the meetup, so we would, open them in various population centers that are out there. And the big thing that we're doing with our meetups is there's no presentations, there's no sales pitches, it's only networking. You go to a lot of the meetups that are out there, like the OWASP, ISSA, et cetera, and it's like, okay, we're gonna do 45 minutes of networking and then 2 hours of listening to some vendor selling you a thing. And especially if you're just getting your career started, or if you're anywhere below a level that has buying power, you're like, this is a complete waste of time to me. Why am I listening to a sales pitch? I can't buy this anyway, even if I like it. 2, I gotta listen to this crap all day at work. I get spam emails all day at work trying to sell me this stuff. Why would I sit in a room and listen to somebody trying to sell me on this? And then after 2 hours, they're like, okay, everybody get out of here. It's like, I wasted half my day and I got 45 minutes of networking. So we started an organization that's just like all networking. It's all night, you show up. We do have sponsors sometimes. We do have salespeople, we have recruiters come in, but we got a rule of like no hard sell, no cornering people. Just show up and just be yourself and be passionate and talk about what you like, and hopefully you'll find other people that are kind of that same zone, find your clique, hang out. That's all it is. We're just literally just solo networking. Professionally, this is what I do on the bottom. I do crime for a living. I get paid to be a criminal, which is really cool because I'm the global head of offensive security at Kraft Heinz, the mac and cheese and ketchup people. And they're like, oh, that sounds really cool. And like, it's kind of the first job I've had in a while where sometimes it is hard to sleep because like now my job is making sure that people's food isn't poison. Like we're critical infrastructure. We're manufacturing, agriculture, we are food, and we have to make sure that the food that is being cranked out by the machines does not have toxic levels of this and that, because also, yes, we are a food processing company. We're effectively making edible plastic. And I can say that to the small conferences. Nobody's eating mac and cheese like this is a proper nutritious meal. But like, that means we're putting a lot of things in these foods. It's like if somebody just tweaked one thing just a little bit to the extent where no human in the factory would ever notice, if you eat mac and cheese 3 times a week with, oh my God, the number of people who do this is staggering. This is a real thing. And you have just a little bit too much of this one emulsifier, and you are genetically predisposed to having a problem with it, you could die. And so there's really like and we have 300 brands of like 6,000 foods that we make. And all of those factories and all those machines having little things that could be tweaked just 0.5% accidentally, which also means it would take us 3 months to notice that we're going through that emulsifier a little too fast, and the next thing you know, we're all over the news because people are dying from their mac and cheese because somebody hacked into the manufacturing plant and just poked it a little bit. I have to not think about that too much, but that's what I do. So I head up the whole offensive security team where we're actively being criminals and simulating crime inside of the organization and working with the blue team to help them understand the attacks and develop defenses against the more complex attacks that aren't just like your garbage ransomware, malware, things like that, especially when we're talking about machinery. Anyone from John Deere here? I know we're in a big John Deere town, right? Oh, there you go, cool, yeah, awesome. Yeah, I've been having conversations with John Deere guys, and it's the same thing. It's like we're running machinery that is now able to be modified in the field at a digital level by reprogramming the firmware, the software that's running in these things. And so, like, this heck, just was it Tesla? Which one of Elon's companies just unveiled like the humanoid robots that are actually working in their factories? Wasn't it Tesla? Yeah, with like the very nimble fingers. We're living in an age where computer-controlled machinery is not just one big robotic arm that paints a car anymore. This is the stuff that creates the critical infrastructure that keeps us safe. It's like all our water filtration is robotics. Our entire electrical grid and energy generation and transmission is all robotics. And don't think about it too hard. Anyway, that's what I do. I am taking a long time because this is, like I said, it's a short presentation, so I got time to just linger on crap. And feel free to just like throw a hand up if you got a question. We can play it casual. So I figured like I can do. How can I pad it? I'll take a long time in the intro slide, which I think I did. Right? I think that was too long. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Good. Thanks for the feedback. Oh, that's the. That's the laser light button, so sorry if I blind somebody accidentally when I'm trying to, there goes Steve, all right. See, that's what I do. I go, okay, how does the thing work, and then what else can I do with it? So, let's talk about motorcycles. I have been riding motorcycles since the early aughts. I don't know how old I was in my 20s. I was way too young to be riding motorcycles, which I discovered real fast because, who rides motorcycles here? Show of hands. Got to be a lot of riders here. No, not that many. Like 4? Cool. All right. Everybody, I want to say everybody, who, safety concerns aside, would like to ride a motorcycle? Who thinks motorcycles would seem like they would be fun to just like take a crack at and blast around the dude? A lot more people. Cool. Yeah. So like I, like many people, was like, I think it'd be cool to ride motorcycles, and so. Mid-20s, I went and I took a class that teaches you how to ride motorcycles and gets you your license and things. And after spending an entire weekend of doing drills and riding around, they give you your license, and I'm like, this is the most dangerous machine on the planet. Why do they allow these on the road? I'm gonna die. Which is why it's really good to educate yourself, because now you really thoroughly understand that, in fact, yes, they are dangerous, and your mom was right. But anyway, I was also absolutely in love with these things, the freedom that they provide, being able to be out there blasting across America without the cage of a car around you is this just incredible zen feeling of both absolute isolation, like you're not in the car with passengers, you're not in the car with the radio, with your audiobooks, with anything. It's just you and your head, and then this isolation combined with the fact that you have this absolute feeling of total openness from the road. And it's just this really kind of interesting balance, this juxtaposition that really helps you get a lot of thinking done. We like to call it road therapy. And I just fell in love with it, and that became a big part of who I was. First motorcycle that I bought because I wanted it. So this isn't the first motorcycle I ever bought. The first one I ever bought was just like something a friend gave me a good deal on, and I was like, cool, I'll try it out. And it wasn't, you know, I hadn't considered what I wanted to ride or anything. It was just a good deal at the time, and I grabbed it. This is the first one where I thought about it, and I was like, that's what I want. This is what's going to fix the problems I have, or this is what I've been looking for. It was the Honda Hornet. It was 2007. I still love this bike. I don't have it anymore because I had to, we'll find out why. But just to recap, because I know it's been a while since we started, what I'm talking about here under everything is purchasing and managing your SIEM. And people who have dealt with the nightmare of even just working at a company with a horribly or untuned SIEM or the wrong SIEM or not enough SIEM for their company are going to have a good chuckle at what I'm getting at up here. So just keep that in mind. So I bought this thing and I was like, I freaking love this thing. Why? Because it's so cool. Because it is like, why is it so cool? It's right up there in that perfect like Gartner quadrant, right? It's got everybody talked about how good it was. Well, who's everybody? Well, everybody who does all the really good pro motorcycle reviews. And who are those people? Well, they're people who get paid by the motorcycle companies to say whether they think the motorcycle is cool or not. And like, that's not to say that they're being paid to say a motorcycle is cool, but what it is they're like, the reality is they're not thoroughly testing every single possible thing that is out there. You know, if we're talking about Gartner quadrants, we're talking about SIEMs, they're testing the big players. How often do you read any kind of Gartner quadrant article and see names you don't recognize? It's like a tiny percentage of the names in there. Like, what do you see in there? You see CrowdStrike, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's because those are the companies that have the kind of money you have to pay to even have your product reviewed at all. So you can still like kind of get a bunk review out of it, but at least like regardless, if your name got mentioned, you're gonna get customers. You comment?
You can definitely get like free reviews, revisions, but they have limits, and they still request you to pay $100,000.
100,000, yeah. It's,
Like, it's nothing.
well, it's not nothing depending on like the size of your company. Like there's plenty of startups, as you'll know, where $100,000 will destroy your company. You can have an incredible product, but because you are two people trying to get your first customer for an absolutely groundbreaking product that is doing something either nothing else is doing or is doing it better than everything else, but nobody knows who you are. Nobody wants to take a chance on you. And then some reviewer says, oh, 100 grand, we'll write a nice article for you. And you go, I pay myself as the CTO $40,000 a year. You want more than double my salary for one article that has no guarantee of ROI. Yeah, that's the reality. So anyway, I wanted this bike because I was convinced by the internet that it was cool. And not just that it was cool, but it seemed to have a lot of the features that I was looking for. After riding around for 2 years on a bike I didn't actually want, and knowing like, well, I wish it did more of this and less of that. I wasn't, you know, as an inexperienced rider, I wasn't exactly sure what my needs were, other than the bike I have now is old and I want something that's newer. Specifically, the bike I have now uses a carburetor and I want something that does fuel injection. Cool. That is one tiny aspect, an important aspect, one tiny aspect of how a motorcycle works. And that was the only thing I was concerned with. And then, to be fair, really, everything else that drew me to it was, look at it. Isn't that cool? And you might not think it's cool. But I was like, that's a white motorcycle, and you never see anyone on a white crotch rocket, like, or any kind of motorcycle, right? So, well, it looks very unique. I'm gonna get the white one. I want the white one. Also, it's pointy. And like, who doesn't like a good pointy motorcycle? And this is how I was basing my decision making on what to do here. And so, because I didn't do a lot of that drawing out of like, what do I need? What am I going to do with this? What is the story of my next 5 to 10 years of this motorcycle to make sure that I'm going to have what I need? I ended up screwing myself over a lot on the back end. One, I ended up putting a lot of time and effort and money into making the motorcycle do what I ended up really quickly finding out that I needed it to do. Because, you know, when you buy, if you've ever bought a car even, you know, like, buying a car is expensive. You buy a car for $10,000, and if you decide the next day you don't like it, you can't sell that car for $10,000 and be like, I'll try again. You spend a ton in taxes, you spend a ton in licensing and registration and shit. Like, you come out at a $10,000 car, you probably got another $1,500, $2,000, maybe about $1,000 really, in like taxes, et cetera, that you just screwed yourself out of now. And in 2007 or whatever, when I'm, broke as crap, in fact, I think I was unemployed at the time, I'm stuck with this bike. And so now I'm nickel and diming myself into $300 sprockets, a slimmer chain, retuning the engine, this and that. I'm going to talk a lot about that later. I'm taking money I didn't have, because if I had it, I would have spent it on maybe a bigger bike, and just nickel and diming the crap out of myself to make this thing be what I would have known I needed it to be had I sat down and not been so impulsive and really laid out in front of me what I'm going to do, why, what I need for that, et cetera. But when you're, 25 years old, not so great at that. And then also, because I spent so much money on that and doing all that, my ownership of this machine really got dragged out. The longer I'm doing this, the less time I'm spending saving up for the motorcycle I should actually have in the first place, right? Just trying to kind of limp this thing along, and it's like, well, there's no money in the budget. There's no money in the budget. Why don't we just I got $500. We can put $500 worth of kind of trying to make it, putting better tires on the thing, because a new motorcycle is going to be $10,000, and who knows when the hell I'm going to come up with $10,000. Maybe next year. Maybe, who knows? Who hears that at work all the time? Oh, maybe next year. We're talking about it. We're talking about it in the 2025 budget. We're probably putting in the 20. We're going to make some room in that budget, and then, come December, they're like, oh, well, we had to cut that out because we have to do more of this or some shit. So then, after about 7 years of riding this motorcycle hard, putting about 10,000 miles on this motorcycle, which doesn't sound like a lot if you're an automotive owner, it's an exceptional amount of mileage to be putting on a motorcycle, especially by what I lovingly call a crotch rocket. These are, even those of you who don't ride motorcycles, the stereotype is like, these are highly uncomfortable. Just look at how you got to sit on the thing. It's like one of these where you're like, can anyone even see me? You're just like, oh my God, how do you ride bent over like that? And in fact, I had done what's called an iron butt challenge, which is where you ride 1,000 miles in 24 hours on the crotch rocket. And like, there's plenty of motorcycles out there that are what I call the lazy boy on wheels, where it's just like a big poofy chair, and you just put your feet up, and you lean back, and you can ride, and 1,000 miles is easy on those. They're made for that. These are not made to go 1,000 miles. These are made to go 50 miles extremely fast and be done with the race and call it a day. And so when I'm going 1,000 miles, very slow because I'm on a road where there are police and children, it can get really uncomfortable. But I wanted to say I did it on the crotch rocket because I knew it was a bad idea, and everyone knows it's a bad idea. And then I go, yeah, I did it. And people go, why did you do that? And I would go, because there's only 3 other guys on that whole website that have done it on the crotch rocket. So I wanted to say I did it. Literally acknowledging, like, this is not the bike I should have for what I'm doing with it, to the point where I can go, do you know what I did with this? And then everyone in my industry goes, why? Buy something else, man. Yeah, you can do log aggregation with Excel. Why? Because we only have $20 because we spent all our money on Excel Pro. And here we are. So eventually, I got a better job and saved up. And oh no, actually, that's not what happened. What happened was I got laid off. The opposite of what I said. I lost my job. We got laid off. I got severance, luckily, because it was a big corporation that did severance, which is very cool when they give severance to all their employees. And it wasn't much, but it was enough for me to, A, put a down payment on a house and finally get myself out of like the poverty cycle of having to rent, because rent is a scam in America, and a lot of people are just stuck, because it's the same problem, it's the same problem as this. I'm constantly paying rent, so how the hell am I supposed to save up for a down payment on a house, right? We all know that. So I lucked out, and I got severance, and, you know, kind of lucked out, kind of, I spent a long time working my ass off to get the job in the first place, so, I call it luck. I like to not pretend like there wasn't some amount of luck there. So I got that, and I put a down payment on way too much house, but I was like, hopefully I'll be able to sell it later and make up for all of the not saving I've been doing, you know, into my 30s. But I'm gonna take a little bit, and I'm gonna buy the motorcycle that's gonna be actually what I've been wanting. And from years of riding the crap out of this thing and being really mad about so many things on it, I had developed through a lot of pain, figuring out what I do need, and I wrote all that down, and I did my pros and cons, and I wrote all that down, and I looked, and I tried a bunch of different motorcycles. I didn't just go to the, you know, what's the bigger Honda? I tried a lot of different brands, because brand loyalty will absolutely kill you in every industry. Even if a company makes one thing you really like, that doesn't mean everything else they make is something you're gonna really like. Absolutely not. The company I'm working at right now, our security portfolio is just an absolute nightmare of brands. It is there's like 20% of the companies in our portfolio I've never heard of. I'll go to the website, and you go to their website, and they're like, I still can't tell what the hell this company does. They cost us a lot. And I'll go to our CISO and go, what are we doing with these guys? And then he'll be like, talk to Frank. And I go, Frank, what are we doing with these guys? And then we find out, like, oh, they're like this niche thing where, like, when this type of server has to SSH through this specific pathway to this type of server, they fingerprint the traffic and make sure that it's the right kind. And it happens twice a year, and we pay $80,000 for the license, but it's a just really cheap license. Anyway, it's like tons of stuff like that where, and they go, well, why don't, like, what, this company also says they do 500 other things. They're like, yeah, we looked at all of it, and it's all terrible compared to these companies. Anyway, brand loyalty will absolutely kill you is the moral of that story. But I tried. I test rode a lot of motorcycles, and I had my list of things I needed to make sure they did before I even talked to the company. And I checked the boxes like, does it have this? Does it have this? Does it have this? I also knew that you'll never find one that's gonna check all of those boxes. So you have to know which ones you're gonna be cool leaving unchecked. You know, you gotta have your 100% unicorn. It's just like finding an employee, right? When you write a job description, you write a job description for that unicorn. A good hiring manager knows you'll never find that unicorn. That person doesn't exist. You know you're gonna have to, like, let some things slide, and you know what are more important than others. You have those mentally weighted. I weighted those on paper. I said, this is a 5, this is a 3, this is a 1, and the number I need to come out to, you know, is a 15. Let's see where we end up. And that helped me really figure out that, like, wow, the Fireblade, which was really just the 1000cc version of my old 600cc version, that's the size of the engine, so you could just guess, bigger engine, more powerful, when I sat on that thing, I rode it one block, and I was like, oh my God, this is it. Oh, I love this engine. I love this feeling. I love how buttery smooth the gear shifting is. I love the anti-dive technology. I love how smooth the braking is. Like, I just loved everything about this bike, and I was like, man, this is the one. And I said, write it up. I didn't have any specs on the other one, did I? So here's what I ended up with. 188 horsepower at a 423-pound bike. Now, this is what's important when you're looking at horsepower for anything. It's not just, you know, if you're into vehicles, you see 188 horsepower, you're like, that's fine, I guess. I don't know. I've seen worse, right? When motorcycles, that's insane because it's a weight ratio. It's how much weight does that horsepower have to drag around with you? When you're talking cars, you're talking things that weigh 2 to 3 tons maybe. For easy math, 2,000 to 3,000 pounds. When you're talking almost 200 horsepower at 400 pounds, that's the 0 to 60 is right around the same as a Tesla Model S in plaid mode, which is one of the fastest production cars that you could just go to a store and buy. That's insanity. And then there's you just, there's no seat belts. There's nothing keeping you on that bike other than being able to crouch low enough so you don't blast off the back of it. I was like, that's one of my big problems with the smaller bike was I was doing a lot of distance riding. I was going very long distances in top gear because you want to put it all the way in the highest gear to minimize your fuel consumption. Because you don't want to be spending a ton of money on gas because you are maxing out the thing that you bought, which is, I think that's something that we all see happening a ton now, especially with like when we're spending our money on AI and things like that. Like you are absolutely just hemorrhaging money. Hell, cloud compute in general. You're hemorrhaging money spending on a GPU and CPU utilization because you do not have a capable enough product to begin with, and so you're just like going 100% on everything, and you're just killing yourself on the back end. That's what I was doing with this. I was running this thing like 7,000 RPM at a time when you want to be idling, you want to be driving at like 3,000 RPMs, like over double the RPMs, which means double the fuel consumption, which means I'm stopping all the time to fill up what is also a very tiny gas tank. And it just really sucked. And I was like, I need the bigger engine. And so most people who buy these big, massive 180 horsepower crotch rockets are like, I need the fastest bike that you got. I need to go as fast as possible. And while this can do it, why I needed it was because I need to go a medium speed for a very long time, and having something with a bigger fuel tank that has that much horsepower behind it means I can go 3,000 RPMs in top gear, and also, and I don't sound like I'm driving a NASCAR car, and that really did it for me. So people think like, oh yeah, he's got the big 1,000 cc's, just he's compensating for something else, if you know what I mean. And the reality is like, no, I'm actually just like driving medium speeds a lot. And that's what this bike is also capable of. So it's not that you're buying the biggest, bestest possible thing and like, this is something you'll get called out by, you know, people who are pushing gets through your budget a lot. They're going to say like, oh, you just want that because that's the newest, coolest thing, or you just want that because you listened to the sales guy too much and he told you on way more than we need. Because I'm looking at like what our numbers are now, and this thing can handle double that, so we don't need that. Get the one that can handle our numbers now. And the reality is, you're going to end up burning through. You're losing all that money in the back end, paying for that gas. I still had to tweak it to be exactly what I needed, because nothing out of the box works for what you need, right? You can't buy something, plug it into your data center and go, cool, it works, we're all done here, I'm gonna go do something else now. No, you do need to spend time tweaking it, but at least it was enough bike to start with. And this was a real game changer for me. Overall, I'm talking about training here. So another thing that really helped me here get way more out of the bike that I wish I had actually done even with this one, because I would have saved a ton of money and permanent injury by taking training. The school that I had taken my initial training through to get my license also has 2 other classes, intermediate and advanced, that teaches a lot of really interesting situations, really unique situations. What do you do on a motorcycle when you have to hit something? How do you react on a motorcycle when you have to run over a very large object in the road? There is a proper, safe way to do that. You don't just throw your hands in the air and go, hope I don't die. No, in fact, the training that we took was you'd be going around a circle in a big track, and every now and then one of the instructors would take a 4x4, 4-inch by 4-inch, huge piece of wood, and throw it out into the track. And there's not enough time for you to swerve around it, and you just have to run it over. And the way you run over it is actually you accelerate, because all of your power in a motorcycle goes through the chain, goes from the engine through the chain, runs the rear wheel. Front wheel has no power behind it. It's just rolling. It's just being pushed. Most cars are the same way. This is called rear wheel drive. And so what you do is you accelerate to push your front wheel over. But then, after your front wheel goes over, you let off the throttle, you pull in the clutch so that you have no power in the rear wheel. Because most of the problems that result in a bike slipping and falling over are from the rear wheel having too much power for how little traction, how little road it can grab. And so you know you're hitting an object that's gonna move the second you put power on top of it. You know, if I had this rear wheel on top of a 4x4 and I gun the throttle, it's gonna spit that board out, and the wheel's gonna spin and the bike's not gonna move, and then it's going to catch the road, stop the wheel, and throw you off the bike. And so I learned the proper way to actually hit something, and it's to accelerate over the first wheel and then let off all your power and let the rear wheel just plop over it with no power, and then you can get out of there. That's not something you would ever learn in the field. I mean, maybe, you know, one person out of 10,000 might logic their way through that eventually, but like, I've talked to so many motorcyclists where I'm like, how do you properly run over a 4x4 or, you know, huge rock or even a pothole or a huge patch of gravel? These are not things that you learn just riding. These are things that training really prepares you for. And so it's a matter of like, A, like, yeah, you're gonna not die. B, you're learning a lot more about how the vehicle works, and you can apply that information to other situations. Like, I learned how to hit a 4x4, but that information absolutely also applied to having to run over a huge patch of sand or gravel. Paying for that training was a huge boon to me in all the future situations there. Like, being able to handle, I mean, you know, you could read the bullet points there. It baffles me how organizations won't send their people through training for the products that they buy, especially in the face of the fact that most of these companies have free training for the stuff you buy. Splunk, etc. You know, you can call them up and go, hey, we purchase your thing, and usually you roll it right into the support contract. When you're buying it, go, yeah, they'll throw it. And a lot of times, I've seen it in the support contract. It's in there already, and nobody's used it. Like, hey, you've got 200 training hours. Have you trained anybody here? No, we gotta get around to it. We got too much going on. And you have too much going on because your people are ineffectively using the thing you bought that you think isn't good enough for your environment, when the reality is that your people just don't know how to use it because it's a very complex thing. So like, training is often cheap or free, substantially reduces risk. It allows you to really, really effectively operate under pressure, which is extremely important in security when we're talking about a P2, a P1. When you're doing incident response and you have somebody who's like 6 levels above you in the hierarchy screaming at you like, how did this happen? What is going on? Where is it now? Who has the ransomware? Who does not have the ransomware? And you barely understand this log aggregation system, and you're desperately just trying to get this basic information, and you are sweating, and you already are coming into this going, I hate this thing, it doesn't work, it doesn't do anything, we bought a big lie, when that's probably not true, because the company probably wouldn't be around this long if it was just a big lie. It's probably that you have never been properly trained how to operate it, or your people have never been trained. And so like, training on the product. I'm not talking about going to a SIEM class. I'm literally talking about ask the people who made the thing if they can train your people in being better at it. And nearly every time, the answer is gonna be yes, we sure can. And I understand you can't just take your whole team down to send them to training, but maybe you can do one person a quarter, something like that. Because usually training's 20 to 40 hours, it's not insane. And then your team is just so much more effective because you're buying all these technologies to not replace people, to do things that like would take 400 people to do, as in like log aggregation through Excel. Like that, I can't imagine the number of people that would take to just read line by line. So you bought a thing to do it, but people still need to use it, and that training is really gonna carry you through all that. You're still gonna need to modify it to be what you need, because like I said, out of the box, a vanilla anything is not gonna be exactly what you need for your company's individual needs, just like this motorcycle, which was beautiful and I loved it the second I sat on it. I was still like, well, here's what I needed to do that I know it can do, but I'm gonna have to put some work and a little bit of money making it do that. I wanted a better windscreen on the front, because these things come with these tiny little, no good examples, because these are all my modified windscreens. They come with flat windscreens that effectively don't do anything. I wanted one that has this bubble in it. You can't really see it here. I think this one has a good. See how the windscreen there kind of pops up and over versus being flat with the white? It's larger. I love that because what that does is it redirects the airflow. Normally, when you're out of the gate, this is set up like a race bike. It's assumed that you're going to be down flat with your head level just above the controls, and so you only need the wind to go like straight over the bike, about like that. I'm not riding like that. That hurts your back. Nobody could. I'm going long distances, right? So I bought a more rounded windshield that pushes the air up, and it kind of goes this way. Now, if I'm sitting up about this high, what's that doing? It's hitting me right in the chest. And you might go, well, that sounds bad or uncomfortable. No, that's great. What that's doing is it's holding me up. Instead of me having to use all my back muscles and ab muscles to keep myself upright, I have a bunch of wind now pushing against my chest, kind of helping too. It's fantastic. It is night and day. It allows me to ride way longer at way higher speeds, if I so choose. It reduces fatigue, which means I get tired less, which means I am safer longer. And so this was one of the big things that I needed to put on there that was fantastic. Increasing the airflow. This is something if you just generally do any kind of vehicle modification you know about. The more oxygen you can throw into the engine and out of the engine, the more you can tweak your air-fuel mixture to get better miles per gallon, which was my goal. I wanted to stop having to refill that gas tank all the time. Other people might want way more power, which means they're going to have to refill the gas more often, but they don't care. The trade-off is something that they're looking for. So like this is something, one of those things you're going to have to tweak based on your individual situation because it's not going to be what you need out of the box. Same with gearing. I wanted to be able to go at highway speeds at very low RPMs so that I'm burning as little fuel as necessary so that I can go as long as possible without refilling my tank. That trade-off means I'm going to have a lower top speed. My bike will not be able to go as fast as it used to. That's fine, because this motorcycle top speed was like 212 miles an hour. I will never need that. I would die just from going that fast. I wouldn't have to hit anything, right? So I'm like, oh, so I can lower my top speed down to like 180 miles an hour, but increase my miles per gallon by 15%. Shit, yeah, that's great. I'm going to put the effort into that. And then tuning. And anyway, this is, everybody knows, this is the word everybody hates seeing next to SIMs, right? No, you're going to tune your SIM. Everybody yells at you all the time. Tune your SIM. Your SIM's not tuned. You never took the time to tune it. Why? Because it's complicated. There's two ways you can tune your motorcycle, and a lot of cars these days. You can do it yourself. And the way doing it yourself works is you hook up a box like this. It's called a Power Commander. There's a few different things out there. Juice box you might have heard of. Harley sells you official ones that you can plug right in. And what they do is they take in the signals coming from the engine. I'm going to put this real basic for you. Take in the signals coming from the engine that go to the bike's computer. And that computer then uses those signals to figure out how much fuel it's going to squirt into the engine to give you more power or whatever. And so it sits in the middle. There's a man-in-the-middle attack against your bike's computer. It intercepts those signals coming in from the engine, and it modifies them based on the way you program it so that your bike's computer will then open up or close the fuel injectors based on how much fuel you actually want to be able to throw into that engine. And then what do you want it to do? That's going to vary on your goals. Is your goals more gas mileage, or is your goal more horsepower? Those are the two goals. But you have to spend a lot of time filling out a very big matrix, because the way the car's computer works, it has 1,000 memory values that are stored in it that are for every 50 RPMs on the engine per gears, and you got 6 gears, there is a fuel ratio that gets injected. And so you gotta fill in every one of those cells with what you want your fuel ratio to be. And how do you know what that's supposed to be? You guess. And then you plug it all in, These people are like, just come in, hang out. You type all these numbers in, and then you got to test it. You got to take it for a ride, and you go, all right, when I'm in third gear at 3,000 RPM, there's a little bit of a lag, but it picks up again when I hit 3,200 RPM. And then you have to like mentally log this because you can't write it down anymore because you're going 60 miles an hour. And you have to hopefully remember all this, and then you go back and you get your computer out and you plug it back into the bike and you type the thing in and you re-upload it, and then you got to ride it again for 5 miles because it takes a minute to, and this is just, it takes forever. I spent years doing this. Every single time I was riding my motorcycle, I would then get off of it later, plug the laptop in, do little changes, and go, okay, next time I gotta remember what I changed. And now I had notes taped to my fucking gas tank of what I had done, because it might be 3 days before I ride the motorcycle again. Years, and then I'm never happy. I'm like, oh, it's almost this, but it's not quite that. Oh, maybe it's this, and then you end up screwing something else. It was horrible. You can do it, you can get there. You're going to spend an insane amount of hours tuning the thing yourself. What's the alternative? Have somebody else do it. Pay the damn money. This is like 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. About 5 years into my ownership of this bike, I gave up, and I found a guy, and he was actually the guy who had made this custom exhaust for my motorcycle to improve my airflow, specifically for this engine. I was looking for something on his website to make the exhaust a little quieter, because I don't want the insane make you deaf motorcycle. That's not beneficial to me or anyone. There's no, everybody says like, oh, loud pipes save lives. There's no data behind that. They don't hear you coming, and like all loud pipes do is scare the shit out of drivers, which just makes the situation worse for you. And also, they were making me deaf, and I was like, this guy has to have a better silencer. And so I was checking his website, and I noticed he was now offering tuning services. And he's like, I can tune your computer and your bike for your exact model, for the exact airflow that we know you have because you bought the stuff from us. And also, it's gonna have a lot more I'm going to make sure the engine fan turns on sooner, so you're not blasting 212-degree heat back at you. It's more like 180, which doesn't sound like a huge difference. It's a huge difference. Anyway, a lot of other features. And then also he's like, I've done this, like, I have this thing down pat. You send me your computer, I flash it, it's back to you in 2 days. I did that, I sent him the money, I sent him the computer. 2 days later, I had the computer back in my bike, and it's a fucking dream. I was ready to sell the bike. I was going to sell the bike. I was like, I just screwed up again. This is not for me. This is not the bike I needed. I'm just gonna buy a cruiser, I guess. I don't like the look of the cruisers. I like the crotch rockets, but like, I do cruiser riding. I'm just gonna have to buy a cruiser, I guess, and that's just, it sucks, but that's what it is. Until I had a real professional tune it professionally. And this is, I said I have the CapEx versus OpEx. In case you don't know what that means. These are different types of budgets that money comes out of at a corporate level. And this is the reason why like your company can't hire more people. Whenever you're like, oh my God, I need another headcount, I need another headcount, or I need to give people raises, and they're like, oh, there's no money in the budget. But you just spent $2 million on CrowdStrike. What do you mean you don't have money? It's a budgeting thing. And so this is something I tell people to do with their SIMs all the time. We go, oh, you need to tune your SIM, right? Well, you need to have somebody do that. And I need to bring in a head count to just have somebody full-time just sit there for 6 months to a year and just tune this. And they won't give me the head count. Well, hire a contractor. I've done this multiple times. You hire somebody from outside who comes in, you say, hey, I need an ArcSight expert to come in and tune my SIM. And then ArcSight will be like, you got it. Well, not ArcSight, but Booz Allen or somebody. And then I've had guys sit there for 6 months, day in and day out, and it comes out of a different budget. So if you're like, I don't have the budget to get that head count to bring in somebody to do this, can you bring in a contractor? Because that's likely gonna be other money that you do have. And also, all that guy does is this all day, day in, day out. He's gonna do it way better than any of your guys who are like, I could probably figure it out. Get the guy who already figured it out. Highly recommend that, highly recommend that. So anyway, overall, these are the big lessons that I learned from motorcycle ownership and maintenance that I think really apply to SIM. Consult experienced peers. Talk to other people who work at similar sized companies. See what they're using, and not just what they're using, what the problems they've run into were, how they've taken care of those problems. Learn from them. Learn from their mistakes all day. This is one of my favorite parts about BurbSec, where I go, you're doing that too? What are you doing for this? What are you doing for this? And they go, well, we did this and this and this, and all that sucked. But now we do this. And I go, cool, because I was going to do this and this and this, and now I know not to. Absolutely talk to everybody else. Talk to other teams inside your environment, in your enterprise, especially when we're talking SIEMs, we're talking log aggregation. Where do those logs come from? Everybody else's systems. I've seen a number of times where the biggest problem with the SIEM was that it was not able to handle, even just from a licensing perspective, the sheer amount of data that was going to get thrown through there because nobody asked teams X, Y, or Z how big their logs actually are. They did not do that proper sit down, write everything out, figure out the story, get all the numbers before buying the things, and then they were screwed. I see so many Splunk customers like that. We're like, oh my God, I didn't know we actually were going to put this much data through. Now our licensing costs are way more money than we had ever budgeted for, and we're super screwed. And a way to do that is tabletop it out. Sit down with those teams, talk it out. Get on their level and ask them. Go look at the log sizes. Don't ask them what they think they are. Go look. That's something else I saw all the time. Like, well, I think we're probably pushing about 1 terabyte a day. And then it turns out to be 8 terabytes a day. Buy more than you need to future-proof that. Don't buy exactly what you need because you're like, well, I'm already over budget. You need to buy 20% more. You have to. That's like a non-negotiable because otherwise that means next year you're back in the same bucket. You don't have enough. Like you didn't solve a problem. You kicked a can down the road and spent all your money doing it. Training, I don't have to rant about training anymore. Definition of done is one of the things I scream at work all the time. Definition of done needs to include training. Definition of done, I just explained what I'm talking about here. It's a project management term. How do you know when the project is done? How do you know when the SIEM purchasing and implementation project is done and you can close it and you go, we're all set, everybody's free to do something else? That needs to include, have the appropriate people been trained the appropriate amount? If you get that listed in your definition of done, that makes it a lot easier for you to have it done because then you go, well, that was part of the project. If we're going to get this project closed on time and to the definition of done, we have to do the training. And nobody wants to be the one who has to say, well, we weren't able to complete the training 100% or complete the project 100% or within the budget or within the scope or on time. They want to say, oh no, that's okay. That's part of it. It makes it a lot easier to start pushing that early on when you're still talking, getting quotes. Like, all right, now make sure, if that training costs money from them, make sure that's in the quote. Make sure that's right in there. So that everybody's talking about their training early on because it's one of the line items in the definition of done. Make sure that tuning, bringing that contractor in for 6 months, which is a very reasonable amount of time to tune it. Make sure that is in your definition of done. That this contractor will be in for 6 months, and after 6 months, then this will be done. You put it all in that definition of done. This is like one of my best corporate hacks for getting support from higher up. Put it in the project definition of done. And then you're not fighting later like, oh yeah, the project's done, but really we still can't use it because I got to train our guys, and really it's going to take about 6 months to tune. Well, it sounds like it's not done. That should have been in your definition of done. Put that in there and put more in there than you need. I say buy 20% more. Put 20% more of everything that you need in that definition of done because what's going to happen is everyone's going to push back and knock you down to 15%, and you actually just want 10%. And they're going to think they got away with something by talking you down. And you're actually going to know, actually, I got 5% more than I wanted, but I'm not going to tell them that. So make sure your definition of done is more than you actually need to get done because this will get chipped away at. Budget probably above. Budget means time. Time is money. Make sure that you have the time with your head count locked away. Be like, this person is gonna be sucked up doing this for the next 6 months or whatever, so that it can actually get done. People always forget to budget time. And when you ask your engineers, hey, how long is it gonna take you to do this? And they say 400 hours. Add 20% to anything any engineer tells you because engineers are absolutely awful at estimating their own time, no matter how good they are. And if they're really good at estimating their time, that means you're done early and you look like a freaking rock star, and so do they. So always add 20% to any of those estimations. That's enough. I'm running out of voice. Anyway, thank you. You can scan that if you want to follow me, find more stuff about what I do. Thanks, guys. Happy CornCon.